All right, folks, let me call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, November 13th, 2018. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask, if you would, to please join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation for council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we are indeed grateful for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us this day. We ask your mercy and grace as we go into this meeting tonight, that you will give us guidance and direction in all we undertake. We thank you for the calling that you've placed upon our lives as leaders in this community, and seek your insight and understanding as we consider matters before us this evening. As we endure some rainy weather, we want to remember those in California as they fight dry winds and fire that is consuming parts of their state. As we assemble here in a warm, dry place, we want to remember those that are outside, cold and wet this evening. As we come filled and without hunger this evening, we pray for those in our community that are hungry. And Lord, we ask that you be with the least of these in our community, that we'll be mindful of their needs as we go through this holiday season. We ask all these things in Christ's name for his sake. Amen.
Amen.
Ms. Adams, do we have anybody to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
With that then, council, we'll move to the minutes of our council meeting. You have the packet from October the 23rd, 2018. Entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bess?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, it is our pleasure this evening to be able to recognize some folks that have participated in the Giving Thanks Art Show, and we've got some winners this evening. And I believe Ms. Bikes here to help us recognize those folks, and so we will do exactly that. Thank you, sir. And you want to give us a little overview of the Giving Thanks Art Show, and then we'll announce some winners. How about that?
This is a student art show. This is the 7th or 8th year, I believe, that I've been helping with it. And it has changed over the years with the Giving Thanks theme, and this year we opened up the theme so that the artists enter whatever they wanted to create, and we had an incredible number of entries this year. We're very excited and thankful for all the different schools that participated. So this year we have, the categories are a little different based on the entries that we received. We have elementary, and then we have 10th, 11th, and 12th grade separate, and then photography. We didn't receive any middle school or 9th grade entries.
Thank you. So let's get some winners up here, and this is in the art events, the first page. And so I'm going to ask, we'll do elementary school, and we'll do some pictures, and then we'll do 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So let's start with the elementary. In third place, or how do you got? Got about first, second, and third. Okay. First place is going to be Jamie Brockman. Jermaine? Ah. Congratulations. Thank you. If you'll stand right over there, stay up here for a moment. I'm sure somebody's going to want to take your picture. Second place goes to Mr. Tom Duncan. Congratulations, sir. And third place goes to Samantha Hidalgo. let's just go ahead and move on. We'll get everybody up here at one time. How about that? So in the 10th grade competition, our first place goes to Kimberly. Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly. Yeah, so just stand right down there. We'll spread out across the front here. Second place goes to Leslie Sanchez Mejia. Okay, going to be with us. Third place goes to Sarah Kay. And another honorable mention to Kimberly. Left grade prizes go to Ellis Ann McClure, first place. Second place, Emily Barbary. And third place to Peyton Close. Our 12th grade winners, first place, Teresa Pruitt. Our second place, Caitlin Tromo. Third place, Claire Cromer. An honorable mention to Ethan Hall. Thank you. Slide that a little bit. Get everybody in here. All right, we're just going to go ahead and get our photography winners up here with us as well, too. So, Maddie Green is first place.
Maddie couldn't be here, and Vanessa's not here, Brian Howard's not here either.
Okay.
I'm her teacher, but I'm here.
Okay. So we got some certificates for you before you leave. Second place goes to Ryan Ann Howard, and third place goes to Vanessa Dominguez. Would you please join me in congratulating our winners?
What is it? Don't get that kind of variety. I think we're starting out. all those elementary kids, right?
Yeah. Packets. If you are here to attend the meeting on behalf of Leadership Greer, you have just missed your opportunity to leave. Because nobody would have known if you'd walked out with them, and judging from the length of our agenda this evening, you should have taken that opportunity. So. We We do welcome you this evening, and thank you for being a part of our meeting. We always enjoy the time of special recognition, whether or not it is recognizing employees for their anniversary dates, or our art show winners, or the various different groups that come before us for special recognition. And so congratulations to all our art show winners. I'm sure their work will be displayed here in City Hall at some point, if it's not already up. I hadn't had a chance to look outside, and it may be out there right now. With that, then, we're going to move on to a presentation. Mr. Jim Ridgel, who is our IT manager, is here this evening and is going to give us an update and report in regards to cyber security. Mr. Ridgel, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Happy to be here tonight to give you a little bit of update on where the city stands with cybersecurity. As we all know, there's a lot of efforts going on right now to defend against a lot of the attacks and things that are happening in the world of computers and cybersecurity especially. It's really no longer just an adult hacker. It's now children, 10 years old and older, can now create these viruses programs that can get into your system and create all kinds of havoc. Gone are those fun days of the early viruses, such as the cookie virus, that would pop up on your screen and ask for a cookie. And it would give you these four choices of an oatmeal cookie, sugar cookie, chocolate chip, or peanut butter cookie. And you had to select which one of those four you thought that virus wanted to have. And if you selected oatmeal cookie and that wasn't what it wanted, it would say, yuck, clear the screen and tell you, give me another cookie. And you had to select finally the one it wanted, whatever it was, and it would disappear and you continue right on, and nothing else happened. Nowadays, of course, as we know, you can lose all computer information. Things get completely deleted. It gets encrypted. You may get ransomware where it asks for any denomination of money to get a key that might work and it might not work. You might get a key and you might not get a key. So it's really progressed into a really ugly scenario. I guess is the best way that I can put that. Some of the bad actors and what they're doing in this play is the spear phishing as well as phishing. With phishing, they're sending out just a mass of emails to anyone and everyone they can get an address to send it to. No specific target in mind, something general in nature. Spear phishing is a bit more targeted, where they're looking at CEOs or CFOs or IT managers. And they're targeting these individuals to try to get them to click on these links and download their code to infect not only that person's system, but all the other systems possibly as well on the network. Some new ones you may not be aware of are phishing and smishing. With phishing, now you're getting a phone call where someone's calling you pretending to be from some legitimate organization, trying to get personal information, passwords from you in order to do something. It could be someone calling from Bank of America, for example, wanting to know, well, we've had some issues with your log on, and if you'll give us your username and password, we'll verify what we have in our records. And it sounds official, but they will never ask you for that. Number one, they can't tell you what your password is because it's already encrypted, so they don't even know what it is. But they can change it to make it something else. But it sounds legit, so a lot of people go for it. Smishing is one where now you get a text message. Well, they'll send you a message and say, we have issues with your account. Click on this link. And next thing you know, you've gone to another website on your cell phone or on your tablet. And now you've downloaded code in that system to also infect your system and possibly get the keyloggers that will record whatever keystrokes or whatever you type in. And now they've got your username and password as well. So two other types of attacks that are coming. The one that's still out there and very prevalent is the brute force. And some days I feel just like that young fellow there with the hammer, standing in front of the computer system ready to issue a brute force attack on it. But with brute force attacking, Now they are coming directly at your computer system, particularly with businesses at your firewall. They want to know, can I just ram right into your system and try to overpower it, let it go dormant for a while, which allows me to get in, or will it stay up? And they just keep attacking and attacking and attacking until something gives. Either they quit or your firewall quits. The ransomware we're all aware of, where they will encrypt your information on your system so that you cannot use it for anything at all, and send you a nice little message of send us 4 or 5 Bitcoin, whatever dollar amount they're looking for, to get the key to unlock your computer system. The only problem with that is if you do get the key, it might work, but there's some information that you still may not be able to get back because of that encryption process. So there's no 100% guarantee, even with ransomware, that you'll get the proper key that unlocks everything. The other concern of that is also, if we do unlock it, how do we know there's not something left on the system that will encrypt it again? So this time next year, you may get another encryption from the same group and asking for the same amount of money or more. And this may be a continual, ongoing process. So ransomware is a little tricky balance. Do you pay the money or do you not? The risk of losing information is always great with that. 2 newer ones that are on the market now are Spectre and Meltdown. These are now getting more hardware specific. In many computer systems, there is an Intel computer processing chip. Meltdown is an attack on that computer chip that allows it to release sensitive information at the chip level. So as it's processing information, as you type in your password and username to a system that goes to a website, that information goes through that central processing unit. And that Meltdown software that's in there will take that information that it's processing and also send it to the hackers. Spectre is another one, but it does it also at the memory level in your computer system. Again, it looks for holes in programs and worms its way into the memory in your computer system and sends that information off as well. So there's lots of bad ways that they are trying to get into and gather information about our computer systems and personal information as well. Looking at what's actually happening here with the city of Greer. In the last 7 days, we've had some vulnerability attacks. These attacks are more like your brute force attacks. There are holes in various types of hardware, software programming that's available now that we have to continuously patch and keep track of and up to date on. We've had brute force attacks here in the last 7 days, totaling just about 7,000 attacks in 7 days. And that's just one type of vulnerability that we're being pounded with right now on our firewall. And this is just the external stuff trying to get in. There's lots of, I shouldn't say lots, but still a fair bit of spyware trying to get in, as well as some other types of older code technology, some not as prevalent as others. But here over the last couple of months, the vulnerability attacks have just about doubled. Not just for the city of Greer, but just industry-wide. The attacks are growing. There's more robots out there now trying to hack their way in for these hackers, and if something stops and it doesn't respond, now it flags the hackers to say, hey, we got an IP address out here for, I'll just use city of Greer as an example, that they stopped responding. So what happened? So now the attackers are cued in to see, let's go see what's happening with city of Greer. So rather than just pinging you a lot and say, nope, can't get in, try it again, nope, can't get in, everything's fine, they're still up. But when it stops, what happened? Why did it stop? You become a target. Also looking at some of the last 7 days of these attacks, these are some of the countries that our website has come, or our firewall has come under attack from, trying to get in. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or not with what the president said about France, but France has suddenly jumped up to the top of the list on the attacks coming in from the outside. About a month ago, it was, of course, we have attacks here in the United States, there's hackers here, but we also have other countries. Germany, I believe, was on the list, still is on there. They've dropped down a little bit. But you see, it's just not localized here to the United States. Everything is out, literally, on the entire world now.
Can an attack be disguised as if it were coming from France and not really be coming from France?
It can indeed. There are ways to bounce an attack off several servers literally around the world. There is a browser that's out on the market now that the Defense Department used to use. Somehow it got leaked out to the rest of the world, and hackers are using it, called a Tor browser, T-O-R. You want to try to go to cityofgreer.org, it may bounce it off a server in France, then go to India, then go to Australia, then go to China, come back to Thailand, and then come back to the United States, and then go to cityofgreer.org. So by the time you bounce around, literally around the world, you've really greatly reduced the capability of trying to find where the original source of that was, of all that bouncing around. A lot of the spies in the CIA and so forth use this browser to communicate back with headquarters and other agents. Just because of that, it would bounce around all over the world and wouldn't be able to tell where they really were. But that's now out available on the web, and the dark web especially. So it's very possible. We can actually take steps to take over, or what we call spoof, someone's email server. So, again, I'm not doing this, but I could take BMW's mail server, for example. If it's not protected properly, I can send emails all over the world, and it looks like it's coming from BMW. And we're doing the same level of things here to take precautionary measures so that the City of Greer's email server and account doesn't get spoofed. Because that can get you blacklisted, where now few companies, if any, will accept emails coming from you, and it's a real pain to try to get that off the blacklist. So, lots of security measures going on about it. Some of the things you may have heard about, of course, Mecklenburg County, when they were hit about this time last year, it has taken them months to recover all of their services. Their Building and Development Standards Division actually went back to pencil and paper. They could not do anything electronic at all, and still tried to process payments,
Great idea.
permits. In some ways, it really is. It does simplify life in some ways, but it also makes it a little inconvenient as well. Again, they had to go back to pencil and paper. They had to redo and upgrade many of their services to protect themselves again so they're not hit the same way they were. And of course, because of all this encryption from their ransomware, they did not make the payment. I think they were asking for, I think it was $52,000, and they chose not to make the ransom payment. And they restored everything from backup, but it's taken them months to do that, as well as purchasing new hardware, new software, getting new policies and practices up in place. One of the challenges that they also had in this process was the FBI got involved and other federal agencies got involved as well. And they were asking for information, which was okay, but their practice was to release some of that information, which was private information that Mecklenburg County had to maintain. And that private information got out. So now they were actually liable for that information going out, even though it was given to a government agency. So there's other processes that have to be considered as well in this, and how do you recover from this? What information do you have to share? Should you not share? And then what's the effect if you don't share it with other government agencies that might need it to help you? So there's a lot of balancing that goes on in there that I was really surprised to find out about. Some of the things I'd never even thought of. It's like, oh my gosh, think about that. So, and the government agency reporting is one. The city of Atlanta, their initial recovery efforts, they spent $3.2 million. In their budget for this year, they asked for an additional $9 million to upgrade their systems to get everything plug all the holes that they could plug. I know Greer's not quite the size of Atlanta, but again, you've got to plug those holes. It could still be very costly for that. With both of those, the penetration actually came from a user clicking on a link that came in an email for both those cities. Mecklenburg County, if I remember correctly, was not one of their employees, but a vendor that they utilized, that the vendor clicked on a link, and when they came into their county systems to do their support work, it spread into their systems from there. So now, not only are we having to be responsible for our local users, but the vendors that we work with as well, that we give access to. We need to make sure that those vendors are also keeping a track or keeping on top of their security efforts and measures as well. Those are two of the largest cities, but there are two other smaller cities that have been affected here in South Carolina, being Fort Mill and Anderson. They've also been hit by ransomware within the last year. The general theme at all of the conferences and groups that I've talked with about security is not if you'll be attacked, it's when. There's just so much happening out there now. There's no way to stop it, but what you do to recover, the efforts that you put forth, and that's some of the things that we're focusing on. In that vein, with emails being one of the main reasons why these attacks of ransomware have happened, I wanted to give you a few email statistics as well for the city. Within the last month, our email firewall has blocked 2,459 emails, average that per day. We've allowed 2,574 emails to come in, and we're averaging roughly 5,149 emails a day coming into the city, and even more that are being blocked from that. There's a couple of spikes in there, as you'll see there, on November the 7th and the 4th. I don't know why that happened, but there was a very large quantity of emails coming in that day. That rate control, being in the blue, means that there were so many emails coming in that day, the firewall said, hold on just a minute, I'm going to stack these up in a queue and then I'll process them as I get to them. So it almost overloaded the firewall. Fortunately, it did not shut it down. It just stacked them up and said they'll be a little bit longer getting delivered, but I'm still going to go through my process. So I'm really thankful about that. But there's a lot of email traffic coming in. Some of the protective measures that we're taking for this whole security is we're upgrading our antivirus and malware. Viruses used to be, and still are, caught by signatures. There's a little piece of code in there that's unique to each virus that's out, or every piece of malware that's out there. The problem is a hacker can distribute a piece of code today. It might be 3 months before the antivirus companies find it, get the signature from it, and then release the subscription definitions that the software will catch it. So it could be 3 to 6 months behind. Well, what do you do in the meantime? Well, now it's spreading like wildfire. One of the things that we're looking to do is go to a program called Silence, a new technology that looks at the processes that are happening at the computer system processor level. So rather than looking at a signature to see is that key available, now it's going to look at what is this program trying to do. And if it sees it's trying to encrypt data on a hard drive, it will stop that process at the processor level. So it doesn't matter if the definition is out or signature is out or not. It looks at what process is happening and stops the process. Now, there may be some legitimate processes that are running. We have some software that does encrypt data. And we'll just put in that program that this particular process by this name is okay to run. And we can put those exceptions in. So next generation step, and of course hackers are already trying to get around that, but processes still have to take place in the system, so that's a good way to try and stop it. Of course, keeping up with the email filtering that we do, as well as the web filtering. Many websites are being put on block lists now. Those are coming out very, very quickly now because we have automated robots that can go out and check all these websites, interact with them, and say, okay, does this look legit, or is there other activity going on? And we can put those filters in place much more quickly than the malware definitions. So we're looking at that. We're looking at modifying the password regulations and what we have. Going from, for example, an 8-character password to a 10 or 12-character password that's changed every 30 days, for example. So updating that, so if there's any passwords that are out there in the marketplace now for these in the black market sales, by making these password changes and making them a bit more difficult and a little bit longer, makes them a little bit more difficult for them to be broken, and not allowing generic passwords as well. We've upgraded our network switches citywide so that there's new features available for how that traffic flows through our network, that we can apply different additional security measures to those switches that will also help. And of course, we've done the phishing training, where we've had a phish test done with the city. Only told a few people about it and had them submit emails that come through and see who clicks on the links in those emails. And thus the know before phishing training. Because there are so many ways that the social engineering is being done now, that you really have to pay close attention to what's in the actual email. You can see an address of a name of someone that you may know, but if you look at the email address behind the name, it may not be their email address. One instance, one email that came out as part of our phishing training was we got the email from payroll company ADP. Well, if you looked at the email, it said APD. The D and the P were flip-flopped. But if you read it very quick, he says, oh yeah, ADP, this is our payroll processing. Click. And now you've just made your first mistake. Okay. So this phishing training will help you identify what's good about an email, what's bad about it, what words and verbiage is in there that can help you understand this cannot be legit. One rule of thumb that I tell everyone is that if you have a question or any piece of doubt in your mind, if this is legit or not, it can't be legit. Better to delete it, call the person, send them an email to someone you know, ask them, did you actually send me this? If they did, you can always pull it back through deleted items. Otherwise, don't open it, and definitely don't click on any links. It's okay to open the email, but don't click on any links, don't download any pictures, if you're not 100% certain that it is legitimate, because that's how that code gets passed. The bad part about the code being downloaded is that it can sit inside your computer system for any amount of time, 6 months, a year. Excuse me. Some viruses used to be activated on a certain date, like Valentine's Day. The I love you virus hit on Valentine's Day. It just blasted emails out to everyone's calendar and continued blasting it to everyone from there. So someone would get it, they'd open it, and it continued to spread from there. Some will just sit dormant for who knows how long. Nobody knows what the triggering method is, and all of a sudden it's open. So the other thing that you have to be careful of is in your backups. You could be backing up a valid file that's infected, restore it, and another 2-3 months from now, it activates again. So we have to be very, very careful about what we download, what we click on, what's coming in, and just making sure that, again, when in doubt, delete it. So these are a few things that we're doing, some protective measures we're taking. We've already seen some great results from the Know Before training. I've gotten quite a few phone calls about, Jim, is this email legit? And they send me a copy of it, and I'll point out where in the email it's not legitimate, and they delete it and continue forward. So there's more training that's coming, more testing that's coming. The emails will get more and more complicated. I'm going Let's try that again. I'm also getting ready to implement a second chance feature of this Know Before training. So if you click on a web link, it will go to Know Before and say, is this a valid link? And if it doesn't think it is, it will then come back to you and say, this appears to be invalid. Are you sure you want to do this? Giving you a second chance. Once you respond yes, then it will go out to that website and off you go. So there's another level of protection in there as well, just to make sure. Our firewall also has the same URL filterings, but again, the more layers you can put in there, the better. Just might slow you down literally a second, but I think we can wait another second for that level of security and safety. That's all I have for this evening. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Jim, any updated statistics on our participation in the Know Before? We were at 80-some, last report at 87% or something?
Yes, it was 85%, as I recall. I have since added another category for the new employees that have come in. They now have 4 weeks to go through that training before it will expire. I can renew that at any time for anyone, change the categories. If I remember correctly, when I looked this morning, it was at 89%. I'll go through and see who's remaining to go through that training.
I'm going to do it, I promise.
I'm going to do it too, I
Now you can bless the Jim, I already told him.
I'm not going to leave you hanging by yourself. I'm also one of those that haven't completed it yet. But I've also gone through all the 15 training programs to select the 3 that are out there that are being used. So I've already been through that quite a bit.
Council, any other questions of Mr. Bidgegill at this point? Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, and I know we'll all look forward to those additional tests coming. Thank you. Mr. Driggers, your report next, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Obviously, you're starting to see around the community our Christmas decorations are going up. We've had some observation of the new decorations that are out on Wayhampton Boulevard, and so getting very good response from the community on those. Downtown is in the process of being completed as well, but between now and Thanksgiving, our intent is to get all of those decorations installed and up for the Christmas season as we usher in that Christmas season. As we do start to prepare for our Christmas downtown, do be reminded that our annual Christmas in Greer Station will be taking place that first weekend of December. We have our tree lighting on Friday night, December the 7th, breakfast with Santa the following morning, and our annual community Christmas parade is that following Sunday. Also, Village Marketplace will be taking place in the downtown area during that same time. So looking forward to that. Please make sure that you are placing on your calendars our Employee Appreciation Breakfast. That is Friday, December the 14th. And I'd also like to ask you to please put a hold on your calendar for Tuesday night, December the 18th. Trying something a little bit different this year. Our meetings have tended to really keep you very busy in December, so Christy, my wife, and I have decided that we're going to try that off Wednesday to invite you into our home for our annual Christmas gathering. That will be taking place on Tuesday evening, December the 18th. Invitation will be coming with more information about that. But I did want to ask you to go ahead and place that on your calendar. If your schedules will allow, we'd love to have you at our home for that annual event. Those are the remarks that I have for this evening. I'll be covering some additional information in executive session relative to the recent opening of our bids for our downtown streetscape project. We need to finalize our participation agreement terms with Co-Transco and the County Legislative Delegation Committee, and then receive direction on how to proceed relative to the bidder on that project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Council, with that, we will move to appointments this evening to boards and commission. The Housing Authority, which is led by Ms. Janice Fowler, has asked that we reappoint Mr. Saul Strange. His term expired 10/31/2018 at the request of the Housing Authority and Ms. Fowler, as well as Mr. Strange. He would like to be reappointed as a commissioner. I will entertain a motion that we reappoint Mr. Saul Strange to the Greer Housing Authority as a commissioner.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion in that regard?
And he's a resident, is that correct?
He is.
Okay.
Yes. Others? Hearing none. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to items of old business this evening. We have before us, the first item is the second and final reading of ordinance number 23-2018. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Lola Crawford and James Wright Sr., James Wright Jr., located at 936 South Suber Road, 2 A and B, 938 South Suber Road, and 942 South Suber Road by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of RM1 residential multifamily for said properties. Ms. McCormick joins us this evening. Any new or additional information in regards to ordinance number 23-2018?
No, sir, just to refresh you, this has been on hold for a while pending a real estate closing. This is for future development of townhouses on Suber Road, just to reorient you to that since it's been a little while.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Comments? Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Next item before us this evening is the second and final reading of ordinance number 35-2018. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by William McAbee, located at 214 Center Street by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of R7.5, single-family residential for said property. Any new or additional information in that regard, Ms. McCormick?
No, sir, not at this time, thank you.
I entertain a motion to receive.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Hearing none. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you. In items of new business, the first item before us this evening involves the Center of the Arts, and it is relative to playground equipment purchase. The approval is requested to purchase playground equipment for the Center for the Arts Park from Landscape Structures through HGAC, a nationwide governmental procurement service. Mr. Red Watson, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreations, joins us this evening to give us an update and information in regards to this item.
Thank you, Mayor Danner, members of council. If you will recall, on September 11th, you made the decision to include alternates 1 and 2 in the Center for the Arts renovation project. Alternate 2 was the playground that we are talking about. Our project team selected a playground offered by Landscape Structures that can be purchased through HGAC, which is a nationwide government purchasing cooperative. By going through HGAC, we'll have the opportunity to save about $18,000 on this particular playground. You have a link in your agenda that contains the renderings or drawings if you'd like to see it. And again, we're seeking approval to move forward with the purchase of this unit.
Council, you hear the information and request from Parks Department to move forward. I'll entertain a motion in that regard.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion or questions.
What's the difference in these two photos? Is there any?
Just the perspective, I think the angle.
That's what I thought.
Others? Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Watson, just very briefly, could you give an update to council on the status of the work at the Center for the Arts?
Sure. Well, our contractor, of course, has occupied the building. They have already demoed. We actually have a construction meeting Thursday morning, but I would say maybe 75% of the demo inside of the building has been performed. So now we are working through some of the RFIs, moving forward with the interior construction. If you ride by, you'll see that there is construction fencing placed on the perimeter of the property with a few select entrances. So that means equipment's going to be coming in and laid down soon. They're trying to finalize their grading contractor. And so a lot of moving parts right now, but I think from the outside, you'll see grading start to take place over the next month or so. But inside the building, if you walk in, and we'll be happy to coordinate that for you if you'd like to come take a look, it looks totally different inside. We're tearing down walls and getting ready to start actually putting it together inside.
Any additional information requested? Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Mr. McMahon joins us now as we do a first reading of ordinance number 29-2018. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Historic Overlay District zoning map as allowed by Chapter 38, Article 4 of the City of Greer Code of Ordinances. Mr. McMahon, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ordinance 29-2018 is a zoning map amendment request to the Historic District. Recently, this property went for demolition approval from the Board of Architectural Review. They issued a certificate of occupancy or appropriateness, and they have requested to remove this parcel from the Historic District.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for questions.
Removing it from the historic district frees it from a lot of regulations, I assume?
It removes it from review from the board itself. It's still in the overlay district, so we'll still have to meet those standards there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's important to make a distinction. We're not removing it from a historic register list. None of those buildings were listed on that register, so we're simply removing it from our overlay. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Others? Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Mr. McMahon stays with us for first reading of ordinance number 30-2018. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Historic Overlay District zoning map as allowed by Chapter 38, Article 4 of the City of Greer Code of Ordinances. Mr. McMahon, ordinance number 30-2018, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ordinance 30-2018 is a zoning map amendment to add, it is the Grace Church property that came before you recently for abandonment. The board reviewed this project and has requested to add this parcel to the historic district. That's all the information I have at this time. We'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Council will entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
How can you, looks like you're dividing, I know there's several buildings there, but looks like you're dividing a building, putting part of it in the overlay district, and the rest is out, according to the map that I'm looking at.
Oh, yes, sir. That is actually, that's the parcel actually itself. The line that goes down the middle, the buildings to the right are tribe, those are separate parcels. The building is connected, but it's just a separate parcel ID number. Grace Church will occupy all of that space, and Tribe 513 and EMI Pediatrics occupies the rest.
Okay, Tribe 13 and pediatrics, that group, although from the front, it's going to look like the same building. I guess my question is, those other two businesses, although they're separate parcels, it's a building, same building. How does that work? It's kind of like having two pieces of zoning on one piece of property, isn't it?
That's the one that has the wall on the inside of it. I think they were talking about the demoing of that one.
The demo, this here is technically what they're asking, but there's no way to add just that one building by adding the whole parcel. This is the warehouse in the rear of the property.
Yep.
Bar is not recommended this going in. This will only be added, but there's no way to add just that one piece without adding the entire parcel. Bar would not review the front two pieces. They would still lay in the overlay district. Just the rear warehouse that is in the back would be under their review.
And so that's in the ordinance, although the parcel is, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, and I understand the parcel, but I still go back to the example. It's like having two zonings on one building. That's a parcel of land.
Maybe that in order for them to have that added to the district, which is part of their tax credit, we can require that they subdivide the back of that property. They're not physically connected. They are in one ownership, which is Grace Church. The offices are here in the front. These two, their offices, they share a common wall, conference rooms, bathrooms, traffic office, corporate office. But this is the part of the sanctuary, which will be the back of the old D&D showroom. We can require that they subdivide this property if it works for them to do that. And maybe that we need to ask council to hold this until our next meeting so we can gain more information about that, if that's something that you would like us to do.
Unless there's more information from you guys or Mr. Greer, I would say that we hold it over, because I think if we just wait this long and have it subdivided, then it's probably going to stop some headaches later on down the road.
Mr. Airwood, if you read the ordinance, even though the parcel is referenced by parcel number, only the back warehouse is being added to the historic overlay. It states that in the ordinance, that only that building, not the front building.
What is the advantage to
It's
doing
not the
that?
parcel being in, it's just the building on the parcel.
What advantage do they gain by doing that?
By coming into the district, it allows them to petition SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, to have this added to the registered district. Once they do that, they're able to capture some tax credits through that also.
More tax credit. Jeez almighty.
The Board of Architectural Review did not consider their financial need in their request. It was the character of that structure, which was part of the old D&D building, and they felt that it was a contributing factor. And when we removed the tire exchange, it was kind of like a equal amount of swap. We want to keep the same amount of buildings contributing to the district, and that was a good exchange in their mind.
Mr. Airwood, your point is very, very valid. I believe, based on the conversations that we've had in the past, understanding the designation of historic properties, in a zoning environment, you're absolutely correct that it would be by the parcel number. For for historic designation, it is specific to a structure, and the purpose of the tax map identification is simply as an identifier. But for historic purposes, it is not specific to the entire tax map number. There could be 4 structures on a single tax map number, and only one is being designated as a historic structure.
Okay, so let's say, hopefully it doesn't happen, the portion that's in the parcel, portion of the parcel that's in that's not going to contain the structure that's being asked to be added, it burns down. How does the city regulate its construction as far as its design and its appearance?
It would have to go back to if it was to burn down and be rebuilt, it would have to go back to the board for review, and they would have to meet all the historic standards.
But But the building's not,
If we're talking about the warehouse in the back, or
no, we're
these
talking
two,
about, no, I'm talking about the front
the
portion.
mutual home store section?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Those would just have to be built back to the overlay district for the downtown overlay.
Okay, so not the historic.
Not the historic center, just the overlay.
Okay, all right, so, and then what about if you jump over on the map and you go to Victoria and Trade where I think there's a church in there now, and it used to be the old Duke Power operated there, and I think bank, but anyway, most of that is vacant. That's in the historic overlay district. I mean, according to the map, it is.
The corner of Victoria.
The corner of
and
Victoria and Trade.
Yes.
Is in the historic overlay district, yes.
Okay. So my question is, the same question goes there. If they wanted to develop that entire lot, although there's nothing there, does it have to be built to historical standards or just downtown?
If it is in the actual historic district, it would have to be built to the historic standards. BAR would have to approve any construction that was done.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it's still kind of confusing because you're going to put this whole parcel in the historic overlay district. But you're saying you're only calling out one building. But that logic doesn't work when you go back to my example.
The way the ordinance is written, I believe Mr. Sell is saying, is that it's only designating a portion of that property to be added to the district. We would draw a square around that. The district doesn't have to follow parcel boundaries per se.
Okay.
We can draw it around that building and not include the remainder of that parcel for clarifications.
Okay, I think that's probably the best thing to do, if that's what you can do. It doesn't have to follow parcel lines, because that's what was getting me confused.
You're just using that map as an example, right?
Yes, sir.
It has the word
It
portion.
has the portion section in it, but we can adjust that for the next reading.
It just, I mean, I see what you're saying. It says rear warehouse and it says,
Well, what's the purpose of the district if you draw around like that? I mean, what's the historic nature if you're able to divide it and just do whatever?
They look at specific structures and how they contribute to the district as a whole. You don't want to add buildings like the ones that are part of their front office that were mutual home that they don't find contribute to the historic character of the district. We had the city do a survey through Brockington and Associates last year, and they found the mutual home store did not have any contributing value to the historic district and did not recommend adding it. MAR took that recommendation and decided not to recommend those two buildings, which are connected, to be added to the district at this time. It may have some sentimental value, but it's not historic in character.
But they did recommend the back part of the old E&D property.
The bar did, yes.
Yes, sir.
That was not specifically evaluated or called out in the Brockington report that I recall. The mutual home was specifically called out because it was directly adjacent. It's in a prominent corner of the city, and we asked them especially to look at that building for its character, and they said no to that building. There are many others in the city that are not in the historic overlay that they do recommend that we add.
Well,
It's not directly
But
contiguous to the district.
Brockington didn't recommend this building. Is that what you're saying?
It wasn't specifically called out as a yes or no recommendation. They specifically said do not add mutual homes.
But you said there are other buildings that they did recommend.
Yes, they're just not contiguous to this district currently, so it'd be jumping over a few things. They feel as though certain things that are close to downtown that are in other zoning districts are valuable. They
It
may
has to be contiguous?
Not necessarily, but that might look a little funny. We're exploring that as part of our comprehensive plan. The cultural resources section has a historic portion of that, and that report will be fully incorporated into that with some valuable recommendations coming from Planning Commission on that, what to do with those recommendations from that Brockington report.
if I simplify everything, the way what I'm hearing you say, and this is what council has wanted for a long time, is a downtown overlay district, which basically is if you were going to build anything, doesn't matter if it's, whatever it is, it's got to look like downtown. But the purpose for the historic district is for tax advantage.
You have the option to get a tax credit. It's really, I believe, to maintain.
Its primary purpose is for the protection of historic properties.
And a higher level,
And that is its purpose.
and a higher level of scrutiny if you're going to do something to one of those.
Exactly.
Now, this is a property tax credit, is it not?
Well, there are property tax credits available for historic properties. The designation of properties was not the design of designating properties as historic or as contributing to historic character. It was for the protection of those properties. And because there is an attempt to protect historic properties, there then became a tie-in for credits relative to those, because it's typically extremely expensive to restore to the historic character of a property. And so those credits are typically available so that they do not fall into disrepair and are ultimately demolished.
I guess the bottom line question I have is, if they get this designation on that piece of property, they'll have property tax credits.
They will be eligible to apply for property tax credits that we don't control.
I know, but we collect them.
These are through...
It's through the federal government. The way that the National Park Service looks at this, it's through the Department of the Interior, is that they apply a higher level of scrutiny to a property that's designated in a federally registered district. As such, we have this building in the back, and they are wanting to do some certain things, like they want to add a garage bay door. When that goes through a SHPO review, because our bar has recommended that it be included in this district, they're probably not going to be allowed to do that. There's going to be higher level of standard applied to this property that would occur, like that is not applied to mutual home. You've seen that work get done on Parkside. They're already open. Parkside Pediatrics, Tribe 513's occupied that space. If they have been requested to go through this, none of the work that they did would likely have been approved. If that works, they changed the character of those structures, whether they were historic or not. They don't look the same. They want to keep this structure in a historical nature. There's a nice, in the back, if you look down the alleyway right now, there's the word service painted on the wall. It was a historic mural as part of that car dealership. They're going to keep that. The Department of Interior will require that they keep the original mural on the wall. They want to add some architectural features through that alleyway to cover it, and they can't just make it look historic. It has to be actually a modern material, so that way you don't jeopardize the character of the original building. They don't want you to add things that look historic. They want you to preserve things that aren't historic.
And Mr. Deaton just reminded me, that is an income tax credit, not a property tax credit. Does not affect us.
I thought they already had that.
Well,
Is this state or federal income tax?
Sure. Yes, a little bit of that's right. Create a brain trust.
The historic tax credits are a credit that apply. There's both a federal and a state historic tax credit available, approximately 20% of your rehabilitation costs, and they apply to income taxes. That's different than the abandoned building tax credits that we dealt with at a prior meeting.
The government's going to end up paying them to build those things.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Well, and this is for a different day, but this, I've been a part of this, and I guess I'm at fault, but I like the idea of having a downtown overlay district that says, you got, whatever you do, it's got to look like downtown. But when you start getting into telling somebody they can't paint over signage that's about faded out, and I hope they would not do that. But you're going to have, there's going to be a lot more hoops, and the cost to for the owner or the tenant, whoever's going to move in and pay for those, it really escalates. And you go to some towns and there's nothing but a shell of a building that's being held up with temporary structures on the inside because it burned, and because it's a historical building, they won't let you do anything to the exterior, and you're spending, I just don't think that's for another day, I guess. but I don't like that direction.
I do want to make sure that we all understand one thing. When you have a nationally registered district or any federal property, let's say it's in the middle of Greer Mill and there's a National Historic Register building, the only thing that it does is give you money if you want to rehabilitate that to a historic standard. The federal government does not require you to keep the structure, paint the structure a certain color, do anything to it. They don't care what you do to it. They don't care if you tear it down. Of course, they're historians and they want you to keep it. But all of the teeth in historic preservation come in our local ordinance. So what we enforce and what the bar enforces are where those regulations are strongest, is what you just described, what council wants, is to have the building maintained historic. So they're asking us to add this so that that way they can take advantage of those income tax credits that Reno spoke about. However, they don't have to do any of that. They can paint over that service sign, they can add that garage door, if the bar were to allow it, if it's added to the district. However, if they're applying for credits, they have to follow the Department of Interior standards. If they're not, they can do anything they want to.
So they requested this?
They requested this, yes. They want to be added to our district.
And they understand what comes with it?
Correct.
What happens after they move out?
It's in the district, and so any new property owner would have to maintain the same standards if they continue to take advantage of those state and income tax credits. I don't know if there are stipulations on a sale or how that works specifically, but I think they have to keep it for 5 years before they're allowed to do something different to it. And for the record, that service sign fits in with the theme as a church. They are going to keep it.
Council, in regards to ordinance number 30-2018, we have a motion and a second in that regard. Is that how we've opened to this discussion?
Yes, sir, you have the motion and second.
So we've got first reading of ordinance number 30-2018 with a motion and a second in that regard. Further discussion or comment as to regards 30-2018?
I did have one question. If y'all are going to adjust the verbiage in the ordinance to basically identify that this is just the back half of the tax map, is that what we're doing?
Well, I think it's clear in the ordinance. We'll make sure 100% before we move forward to second reading.
It just says,
But if we need to make an amendment, we can before second
it
reading.
just says that the property is identified by this specific tax map parcel, and it shows, and I think that's where the confusion's coming in, is that it looks like it's part of the front half, but in reality, it's just that back warehouse. So if the language just kind of said it's just for a portion of that parcel, then it might be more clear.
Would you like to offer that as an amendment to first reading, so that that's how we would do that, or are you asking staff to make the amendment and identify it before we bring it back for second reading?
I mean, I'm happy to do it either way. What do you recommend?
I think if it's a desire of council to do that, I think it would be appropriate to offer that as an amendment, and then we'll make that language adjustment.
Yeah, I thought it was the whole thing too, so.
Okay.
Who made the original motion?
Mr. Dumas.
If you'd like to amend your motion to that, and then if whoever seconded,
Mr. Griffin.
Mr. Griffin agrees to that, then you would proceed with the amended motion.
Okay. I would like to amend my motion to basically adjust the verbiage to say that it's the back portion of the Greenville County tax map parcel.
Understood?
Yes, and we will specify the exact dimensions, and we can even prepare an exhibit, a plat exhibit to that effect. So we'll have exact acreage as well.
Okay.
And I think I can answer his question, what would happen if they moved out? We just took the designation away from the brick building on Main Street. So all they got to do is come back and ask for whoever the new tenant is, to come back and ask that it be removed from this building. That's what it seems. I mean, you can give it and you can take it away.
In that regard, the owner of the tire exchange, current owner of the tire exchange building, did not request that be removed. It has been approved for demolition. Therefore, there will be nothing there contributing. So it doesn't make sense to keep the designation.
If it's a historic building, how can you demolish it?
There's no requirement to keep it. That's there's no, even in Charleston.
He's not using historic tax credits or requesting historic.
I know
He
that,
could.
but it's a historic building. Isn't that the point of designating a historic building? To preserve it? That's what we're gonna demolish it?
The goal, but the only real reaction is that you get federal dollars if you apply for them. That's the root of the Federal Register of Historic Places.
Well, we're getting ready to, aren't we gonna demolish a number of other buildings in there?
Well, only the purple.
That is the only one that's in the district.
That's the only one in the district is that one. These are all in the C1 and S1 zone. They're part of the downtown overlay district, but not part of the historic district.
So the purple is not historic?
Purple is historic.
Maybe we need to revisit that historic, because we're doing the same thing with the downtown overlay district. It's just that there's other things that come from the federal government if they're...
Yeah, I agree. We're not comparing apples to apples here. We've gotten off on a bit of a tangent here because the point was made earlier that none of the buildings that we're looking at on the demolition site are on the historic register, and there's a fairly significant difference between the register, the overlay, and the downtown. I think we just need to clarify what we're talking about because we're mixing and matching here, and that's just not. It just doesn't line up. So we need to have this as a separate discussion in some regard. We've got a motion with an amendment to clarify the area for the change in regards to the historic districts. We've got the motion. Do I hear a second?
Mayor, I'm going to have to amend my second.
Okay.
I'll amend it.
All right. Now we've got an amended motion and a second to clarify the language in regards to the particular area that's in here. Any additional questions or comments in that regard? Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Item D is the first reading of ordinance number 37-2018. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer zoning code of ordinance by adding to Article 5 district regulations to incorporate hotels within the City of Greer C1 Central District. Mr. McMahon?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ordinance 37-2018 is to amend Article 5, as you stated, to add hotels to the downtown central business district. Currently, that is not a permitted use, and we feel that is a good addition to have. That's all you
Dave to be figured out.
I think it requires some additional information. Mr. McCormick, if you'd like to share, we had other options and why we chose to bring it this way.
Currently, as Mr. McMahon stated, hotel is not a permitted use in our C1 district. It is in our S1 district, and some of the property, as we know, that the project is underway on, or will be underway on soon, is zone C1, and some of it is zone S1. We typically, as we have just alluded to within our previous discussion, do not like to have split zone property. As such, we will be looking at a rezoning of some sort, depending upon the overall layout, perhaps, of this project. There may be a need to rezone to DRD Design Review District, where we have some additional looks at their elevations, architectural controls. Again, the entire project will be in a downtown overlay, but not in the historic district, as we just have had first reading to remove the Tire Exchange building. However, C1 is the way it's currently zoned. There may be an opportunity in the future for us to rezone this property to DRD if we need to for additional or extensive review of the project.
And from a timing perspective, that process will take longer than it will to do 2 readings to add it to C1. This is, the primary purpose here is to allow for us to be able to issue permits for the construction of that hotel and that site as a permitted use in C1. It's a timing process that we're recommending versus a complete rezoning.
They may come through with a rezoning to DRD, and that would take until about mid-March before we would have a final development plan approved if they started today. As such, we want to be able to review plans and issue foundation permits and the like before that time comes.
But that's right.
Others? entertain a motion to receive number 37-2018.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Questions or comments? Hearing none. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, first reading of ordinance number 38-2018, an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Washington Baptist Church located at 2308 East Gap Creek Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R10, single-family residential for said property. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Mayor Danner. Just bring your attention to the screen. This property, you have unzoned in Greenville County and Spartanburg County. The county line falls right in the middle here. This is directly across from the country club, which is golf course boxes here to where we are. Washington Baptist Church is seeking to sell this property. They have contracted services of Blue Water Civil Design to design a subdivision and are looking for a buyer. Therefore, they're asking to have this rezoned in order to make that a successful sale. And that's all I have to say.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or a representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Would any of y'all like to address council in regards to any additional information or insight that we might need? Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. I'll entertain a motion to receive 38-2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
Now, the part that's split between Greenville and Spartanburg County, does that mean somebody, if they develop on that, they're going to have two tax?
Yes, in essence, they will. And plats that are reviewed will be recorded in both locations. We have that all the time in the city. With our city bisect by Greenville and Spartanburg counties, we have to record plats in the city, sign them in the city, and they have to take it to both locations to be recorded.
That won't alter the line. I mean,
No, that's set by the legislature. That will not change the county line.
so if the house is built right in the middle,
Hopefully, we won't do that. But if that,
it looks like it could be possible.
It does, you said hopefully, but it could happen,
It
though,
does
right?
happen, and typically, the jurisdictions, the way that they do that, because it's all in the city, and we have all the reviews here in-house as far as the building plans, and the sewer, and the streets will be all housed, within the city and CPW, they'll just have to record taxes, and generally, what happens is the majority of the structure is typically in Spartanburg or Greenville County, and it happens so many times along the county line, they kind of take half. We'll take this one, we take the next one. That's what my experience has been.
But the property would not be taxed by both counties.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, that was your point.
one that has
No, they're not taxed by both counties. We have to record them in both, but both do not tax them. They would be taxed by one or the other. The rule of thumb has primarily been that they would assign it where the master bedroom is located. If the house is split, typically when they are assigning it, it's where the living quarter, the master bedroom is located. It's rare, but it does happen.
Where the taxpayer sleeps,
Yep.
he shall pay.
Yep.
Others? Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you. First reading of ordinance number 39-2018. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Plastic Omnium Exterior LLC located at 871 and 875 Victor Hill Road by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of I-1 for said property. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Mayor. The property we have for annexation totals 10 acres. It's 2 parcels currently located in Spartanburg County. They're unzoned. The property is proposed for I-1 industrial zoning for future development of another Plastic Omnium facility. See those parcels here? Just across from the backside of the end of the test track located on Victor Hill Road, and we have continuity established by current parcel in the city. That's all I have at this time. I'm glad to take any questions.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Let the record indicate nobody said so. I'll entertain a motion to receive 39-2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, last item of our regular session this evening is our Greer City Council 2019 meeting schedule. As many of you are already booking meetings well into December at this point, it behooves us to go ahead and approve a 2019 meeting schedule. You have that contained in your packet. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And I'll need a second.
Now, hang on 1 second. Okay. 1 second, and then we can talk about it.
Okay. Floor is open for discussion.
What?
Questions?
Okay, what's the deal on October?
October 29th to the 5th. If you'll look at the calendar attached behind it on the October, it's a month that we have 5 Tuesdays. The fourth Tuesday of that month, our traditional meeting would have fallen on the 22nd. That is when I have traditionally made a request of council to consider either not holding that meeting or moving that meeting to allow for attendance at the ICMA conference. Mike Sell and I both try to attend that conference. We do not like to be both gone from your meeting date. Because there are 5 Tuesdays, you would be able to move it to the following Tuesday and still not have meetings back to back. It just worked on the calendar to be able to do it that way this year. Very good question.
Is that a trust issue?
That's like, well, that's like when the deacons meeting with the pastor goes. The pastor wants to see what the deacons doing.
The pastor never lets the deacons meet. All kinds of things can happen.
I think that's a good idea, and I also like that you've already laid out the strategic planning retreat to give us time to.
Yes, sir, we want to go ahead and get that on the calendar, and
Yeah.
because we know that that's always difficult, and so we wanted to go ahead and place it in the calendar.
And I won't be here for that. That's my one I will miss.
We'll take good notes.
Please. It's my wedding day.
Oh, well. You will be.
They miss it.
Excused absence.
Others? Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we have one item before us this evening in executive session. It's a contractual matter. I will entertain a request to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
We need somebody to make the request for the matter, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to the downtown streetscape project as allowed by State Statute 30-4-70A2.
I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved again.
And a second.
Second.
Streetscape.
Ms. Adams?
I got a comment.
Excuse me.
Question.
Okay.
Since this project has been announced, the contract or the estimation has been done, the quotation has been opened in public, and we know what the total is. Tell me how this qualifies for executive session.
I will be making a recommendation to council in executive session for us to consider some value engineering that will reduce that cost.
My anticipation is that we will need to take some action in regard to...
There will be action after executive session.
After executive session as well, too.
Absolutely.
Qualifies under contractual.
Yes, sir, because we ultimately will enter into a contract through the Greenville County Legislative Delegation Transportation Committee for a scope of work. That scope of work that was identified in the bid proposal because of the actual amount of the bid. I do believe that there is an opportunity for us. It will be council's decision, but I believe that there is an opportunity for us through value engineering to reduce some of that cost. And the reason that it qualifies is that it is negotiation with the bidder, Sossaman.
Others? Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we stand in executive session. Council, in executive session, we've considered a contractual matter that we entered into executive session to discuss. It pertains to the downtown streetscape project as allowed by state statute 30-4-70A2. As we come out of executive session, anticipate action in that regard. Do I hear a motion to adjourn executive session?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second in that regard. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, in relationship to the downtown streetscape project based on information gathered in executive session about a contractual matter, is any action to be taken at this point?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve that the Greenville County Legislative Delegation Transportation Commission enters into a contract with Saltzman and that we allow the city administrator to continue negotiations on the streetscape project.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Comments? Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Adams?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we stand adjourned.